Working here at Dolan Infirmary. Thank you all very much for coming. It's great to see so many people here, and obviously at West Cumbria. Hello. I'm just kind of going to do a very quick introduction. We've got Brian Dolan here, who is Professor Brian Dolan, is a fabulous speaker, and he's going to come and talk to us about his campaign. And it's really about promoting quality care and value to patients' time. So, you know, it's really important, and that's why we're all here, that's why we come to work every single day. And then we have Steve from NHS Improvement, who's going to introduce himself and say a little bit about what he does and how we can help support him to do his job and to make patient care the best we possibly can in Cumbria. Okay, so I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, just really brief, yes. Yeah. Thanks for that. So it's my name's Steve Christie, I'm Head of Service Improvement for NHS Improvement, so the dreaded regulator, but we're not about regulation, about how we support you guys and enable you guys to do what you do best as local experts. So I'd just like to say just a few things. Just first and foremost, thanks to Barbara and you guys, because it's an absolute honour and privilege to be coming on site to see the fabulous work that you guys are taking forward. You know, I've already just going down the atrium in your lovely new PFI build, just to see the campaign of Red to Green, just really uplifting, inspiring, and it just fills me with enthusiasm. So thanks ever so much for inviting us along and helping and being part of your journey that is Red to Green and NPJ paralysis. I think for me, just from my point of view, I do a number of these type of events and work alongside a number of systems helping us promote and introduce this type of work. And I think if there's any two sort of learning points for me, it's about how you have fun with this and be kind to each other. And it sounds really obvious now, but this is about actually how you make it a fun workplace for not just improving patient care for patients, but ensuring that we lift morale to our staff that work, you know, relentlessly in really challenging, complex situations. So really embrace Red to Green and take the opportunity to have some humour along the way and make it fun and build the enthusiasm. So on that note, I think I've been given the privilege to introduce Brian.
I'm going to do one thing and just do
one thing.
Yeah. So as part of this is obviously we need to kind of make sure we value patients' time. We've kind of got I would say volunteer is a little bit of a strong word. Megan said that she would kindly put on a nice nightgown for us and spend some time in the bed while we're doing this presentation. And this is all about understanding how you feel being in this position. She didn't know it was going to happen today, thankfully, or else she wouldn't have came. And you know, and people come into hospital in that way. They don't know that they're going to turn up and come into hospital. They don't know they're going to have to wear the pyjamas, and they get put in this environment, and it's just very nice normally. So we'll hear from Megan at the end, and want to just pop your gown on, Megan, and have a seat on the bed, and then I'll let you carry on there.
Good. We'll just watch you get ready. Yeah, so I'm going to introduce Brian will introduce himself, but I suppose for me, what Brian's work really resonates because Barbara quite rightly pointed out, it's not about performance and KPIs and trajectories. This is about actually how we value patients' time as our greatest currency in healthcare. And you know, I've listened to Brian on a number of times now, and it is quite inspiring. It really does resonate with my personal values in terms of why we're here and why we do this job. So I I'd like to welcome Brian to North Cumbria.
Thank you very much indeed. That's good, I guess. Thank you. And thank you very, very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the honour of hosting. And Barbara, thanks to you so much for being the quiet rock star that you are and you're doing. And I have exactly 45 minutes, 9:57. So what I'm going to talk about for the next 15 hours is just a bit about patient care, patient time, and looking at a new model change called the Today programme, which I've put out with Linda Holt. And we'll just start with this. It's a short video, and if you will, have a look. And I'll bring the microphone over so hopefully it can be heard. Okay, and it's this.
It's almost over, the sky's about to show the first glimpse of gold. Waking up dreams, thing is I don't know why things that I felt so concerned with just like me. Tripped with the beat, I've been running around looking for answers, and all of these things just still ain't enough. Like the moment they flames, let the questions just hang. All I need is time with your love. I've been running around looking for answers. All of these things, there still ain't enough. There ain't enough. Time with your love. There ain't enough.
Get the stuff into up here. And here's the question for you. If you had 1,000 days left to live, how many would you choose to spend in hospital? And time is the most important currency in healthcare, and yet it's also one of the ones that are wasted. Just a tiny bit about me in the 30 seconds. I'm a director of pretentious job titles and a recovering academic. And my clinical background is in mental health, and still my best qualification, even with an honours degree, but also emergency care has been most of my clinical career. And this is the Today model, which we created, Linda Holt and I, in a coffee shop in Stratford-on-Avon, where I also live, as well as in New Zealand and in Australia. Just a very, very long commute to work. And we did this over the Christmas period, and it's around time and looking at time to construct. And the currency of healthcare actually is time. You know, when you unpick it, you know, what are access targets, what they constitute, they're about time, aren't they? The 18 weeks, the 4 hours, they're about time. Waiting lists, they are measured in time. Harm is frequently caused as a consequence of time ill spent. It's a really good work was done by Drew Richardson in Australia, an ED academic, and what he found is that there's a correlation, a direct correlation between the length of time somebody spent in an emergency department and increased morbidity and mortality. So if you're a respiratory patient, where's the best place for you to be? Now, we all now hold hands for contact of living. Where would the best place for a respiratory patient be? Home. Absolutely. And if they have to be in hospital, would it be in the emergency department? No. So thank you. Just ask. I love your hands, Mike. That's very good. I hope you're doing this in West Cumbria as well, by the way. Get away from afar. But it is. And in fact, one of my ED colleagues in Australia, who's an ED doctor, but also an academic physician, he worked out that there's more people die as a consequence of waiting in an emergency department in Australia than die on Australian roads. And I would bet if you did the maths over in this country, it would be much the same thing. So harm is a consequence. Deconditioning is a direct consequence of waiting. And beds are not capacity. Beds are not capacity. Beds are simply places where people wait for things to happen. How many beds are in this trust, roughly?
Just over 500.
Sorry, give me?
Just over 500.
Just over 500. And what do you think would happen if you doubled it to 1,000 within 6 months? What would happen?
Let's be honest.
Absolutely. Builders and they will come. You know, because if beds are not capacity, and a great colleague of ours, Dr. Ian Sturgis, a geriatrician, he talked about this. But you know, if beds are not capacity, what do you think is capacity? What constitutes capacity in the health service? Sorry, forgive me?
Time.
Not time. Pardon?
Patience.
Not patients. No, patients aren't capacity.
Resources.
Pardon?
Resources.
A very specific type.
Staff.
Staff, which type? You're absolutely right. You're on the right track. What type of staff?
Frontline.
Pardon?
Frontline staff.
Yes and no. A very particular type. Frontline staff, Mark. I used to tell that funny one
You just run through every type of stuff in the north of
No, it's one every group. It's senior clinical decision makers. That is what represents capacity. Because they're the group who can make a decision that enables the patient to move on in their journey. You know, why are we waiting for the ward round? What are we waiting for? We're waiting for the OT to do an assessment. What are we waiting for? We're waiting for the what do you call them here, TTOs, TTAs, you know, the drugs. But they need to do medicines reconciliation. That needs clinicians to be able to do that, pharmacists. It's clinicians are the capacity, and senior clinical decision makers are what constitutes capacity in the health system, not beds. If you look at DNAs, they are missed appointments. Patients don't. You can't carry an outpatient appointment over to next week if a patient doesn't turn up. And even on today, patients go home, they wait for ward rounds, discharge paperwork, they wait for medication and script. They even wait for the surprise relatives who know they're going home today. Really? Equipment. Looking for equipment, that's kind of chasing around. You notice how our odds machines, they huddle together like survivors from the Titanic. It's like, oh my God, look at all of them, there's two of them there, like buses really, aren't they? And waiting for people to call back. Or being involved in pointless meetings. You know, wouldn't it be great if somebody said, look, I'm on my way now to a pointful meeting, it's very important. You know, but actually what we end up in is a lot of pointless ones. And one thing I like that they do in the Gold Coast, in South Brisbane, is they work out at a meeting roughly how much per hour, rough average, of how much per hour the cost of that meeting is based on the staff. So if you've got 10 staff on $100 an hour, this is $1,000 an hour meeting. And if at the end of this, what is this collectively, the West, you know, here West Cumbria, this is a couple £1,000 worth. And I hope in the next 45 minutes, if you have not changed the way you think, then I've failed you, because this is thousands of dollars or pounds of taxpayers' money collectively in this room. But and I love that line by Simon Stevens where he says, think like patients, act like a taxpayer. Because we have plenty of resources in the health system. It's not about the money. Money is not our crisis globally in healthcare. That is not the issue. Neither is facilities. The greatest global crisis we face in healthcare is a people one. Internationally, the average nurse now is 47 years of age. Even allied health is starting to get older, which is quite shocking, really, it's true. Doctors, you know, GPs in Canterbury, in New Zealand, where I also work, in 2001, the average GP was 41 years of age in 2001. By 2012, they were 52 years of age. About 26% of GPs in Kent are over the age of 55. In 2.5 years from now, there will be a shortfall of 1 million nurses in the United States. 1 million too few nurses. That is our great challenge. And if 50% of it is over the age of 47, that is a crisis we face internationally. That's our challenge. So how do we ensure that people's time is not wasted? Because it's axiomatic that in order to value patients' time, one must value staff time as well. And partly is because 70% of the NHS budget is spent on time. What we call it, a salary and wages, is the purchase of the hours of our time. And it's creating ownership. So how do you get ownership of the last 1,000 days or NPJ paralysis? And NPJ paralysis started in many respects in the outback of Australia. I was working in a place called Broken Hill, which is, if somebody has a fractured neck femur, it is too far for the helicopters to fly to Melbourne. They have to put on a plane. You know, it's tiny, so it's got two wards. It is an area the size of England, but only 30,000 people live there. So it's kind of, you know, hardcore remote. And I've been in Nottingham University Hospital a couple of weeks before, and we talked about the last 1,000 days, and I got to talk about pajamas. And then Stephen Gill actually works now with Steve up here, and I was responding to a tweet, which I truthfully can't remember what the tweet from it was, but I said, hang on, it's just brilliant, because you know what? Nursing was born in the church and raised in the army, and we put people in uniform and pajamas. Let's fix that, which within a few days turned into NPJ paralysis. Because, there is a truth in this. That original quote comes from my first book in 1993 about 2000 that Timoy and I were chatting about earlier. And, one thing if you think about the linguistic heritage of healthcare, we have medical officers, nursing officers, staff nurse, auxiliaries, and not forgetting sister. To just, embed us in a bit of religion. As an Irish Catholic, I've got a PhD in guilt, we did that a lot. But that's kind of where it started. And within weeks, it took a bit of a while to get going, and on the 1st of January, there had something like 9 impressions on Twitter. I haven't been able to look at the data very recently, but we now know in just 7-8 months, it is now over 100 million impressions on Twitter. And it's, we were chatting about this. We trained in the last millennium. So and we used to do this stuff, and what we're doing is kind of revisiting and bringing it back. Because putting people in gowns, Have you ever wondered why it's called ICU? Now you know. And what is it we do to people? Something's wrong, I feel vulnerable, I'm disempowered, I'm disadvantaged, it's horrible, I can't question stuff. What happens is the patient owns their story, they own their illness, they don't own the narrative of the illness, but actually this is horrible to be going around in the most demeaning garment that was ever designed for people. So how do you get people to let it go? Well, it's one of those things about taking responsibility. We own this. We step up into a space, and leadership is not a job title. Leadership is a set of behaviours. You look at the work that the leadership of the likes of Barbara, senior physio in a trust in the northwest of England even. My geography is so bad I can get lost getting out of the sleeping bag. But didn't say, oh no, I had to wait to become a manager. Just took responsibility, owned it, and has looked at its success. Because when you take ownership, you start becoming more powerful, so you start empowering it. And Henry Ford was right when he said, when you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. So what do we do instead? We feel, well, nobody listens to me, or I have no real voice and I've got no control over anything. By the way, just a quick check, how many here are nurses? Very good, my tribe. Because this might be a nurse, but actually it could be a doctor, it could be a manager, it could be a physio. But as nurses, we suffer more than anybody. We suffer from what I call MOPE syndrome, which stands for the most oppressed people ever. Nobody knows our suffering, And you look at it, we've got so much to learn from our great medical colleagues. Because they back themselves, they're really good at allied health, fantastic. And as nurses, we need to own and step into that space ourselves and just do that. Because every single person in the health system makes a difference to someone or something. Always do. And if you are a leader, remember it's not a job title, it's a way of seeing the world. You are never off duty for a heartbeat. How you interact with the person serving you a coffee in Starbucks, somebody sees you. And that behaviour gets modeled, and it is really important. But this I also know, everybody brings happiness. Some by coming, some by leaving. The thing about it, what also starts to happen when people start to take ownership is they start putting in discretionary effort. And organisations grow and develop at the speed of trust. When people feel they are trusted and they can trust, and I've been thinking of that there's a sea change in this organisation in the last 12 months. It's going on a very different journey. There's some really good new people, Anna Gallups coming into the party, people like Helen, there's others around us. And what's been fantastic is you can make it better, you can change things. And when you look at the likes of, this is from Peter Kennel, he's a comms manager in Northampton, he created this because he felt, I want to do my bit in my skills to make this better. And I talk about this from the perspective of cognitive bias. So if you're a clinician, you see somebody in the bed, you think, what's your name? Megan. So Megan's not looking very well today, look at her, she's lying in the bed, she's not looking great. But But if I saw Megan up and dressed, one thing I'd be saying about Megan suddenly aged. But you see the person that's sitting out of bed and they go, oh my God, that, you know, the finishing things, well, you're looking better. You know, maybe she didn't go one stay. The relatives come in and say, oh my God, now you look terribly, look at you now, you're looking really good. And then the patient, you know, what do we think when somebody says you're looking a lot better? You think, well, maybe I am. I must be. They told me I am. So that cognitive bias is avoided. And as a good friend of mine often says, no woman wants to see friends or family in the hospital when she's not even wearing the or a bra. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And it seems to me that with NPJ paralysis, as we humanise our patients, we start to humanise ourselves as well. And this person, I don't know who she is, it's just a picture here, but you know, instead of being a 79-year-old woman with COPD, this is Alice, who's a retired solicitor who has COPD. Doesn't that change this person away from the disease and was able to actual people? And wouldn't it be fabulous if we, you know, when we're doing handovers, we talk about who they are or what they have done, because then we start to see them in a different light as well. This is the work of Courtney Baines. It's brilliant to see that Courtney has been one. The last time I checked, he's on 70 trusts, where he shoots off the Cambridge logo and put on yours, for example. He's done them in Australia and New Zealand. It's just brilliant to see this sort of stuff happening. And the original NPJ paralysis party, launch, was done by this woman. This is Chloe Harris, a young 20-odd-year-old physiotherapist. And she said in Salisbury, what would it be like, this is not February, what would it be like if we decided we all turn up in our pajamas and launch it? And it's just great. I love the fact that the patients there, and here's a whole bunch more of them that have been done. I love this picture in the bottom right-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner for you. And you've got a patient front and centre. And if you ever wondered where Wally went, now we know. And one of my favourite photos of that is this one. You know, I just love this celebration and, you know, the rock star in front. But I mean, when I saw what you've done, you were on telly and stuff like that, it's just like, oh, my goodness, this is just, because it's about joy, isn't it? We shouldn't be afraid of having fun. Somebody made a tweet on the weekend saying, no one's allowed to laugh anymore in hospital. I was thinking, what are you talking about? The back of your head? That is just not true. And if you don't think you know he's allowed, we'll start laughing. Be a rebel that starts to laugh, you know. Do you remember doing wheelchair races? Wheelchair races. We used to put paid people on the day people would leave, we would chuck them into a betadine or a charcoal bath on the last day. It's more of a staff attention, we're not allowed to do it anymore. If you came to work without a change of clothes, well, that's your own castle. But the thing is, we got the work done. That's the thing, you can have a crack with the Irish variety, but get from Ireland. But you still got, and when you're having fun, and when staff are enjoying it, I'll tell you this, so are the patients. Because who wants to work in, or be cared for, in a dual place, where it feels like everyone walks around like dementia, sucking the energy out of the place. And Nottingham University Hospital, they were, if you've got the notion of first follower, as Anne-Marie Riley, the Deputy Director of Nursing, was a great work along this work. She talks about her being my first stalker. And this is Adelina. And Adelina McGrogan is an OT who is the ward manager, and that's about rethinking. It's about skills, not just job titles. And in her case, she's an OT doing amazing work. And that's the stuff that she's driving in their transitional care space. And this is what's on their community ward in Nottingham, about encouraging people to come and supply the toiletries, well-fitting shoes. And one thing is we work with the GPs and CCG to start saying, getting leaflets out into the community to say, if you come to hospital, you need to come to hospital. These are the things we recommend. We do it for expectant mums. Why wouldn't we do it for patients who are being admitted? This is Aileen Grogan as well, her name is. And she's runs a rehab ward in Cork University Hospital. So I was over there in March, and Alice Aurora is a geriatrician. And he's got the phrase, let's get up, get moving, let's try. I love that. And he's my brother by another mother, really. But Aileen had two patients, both of them with dementia, both of whom were waiting to go to a care home. They got them up, dressed and moving, and their cognitive function improved to the point where instead of going to a home, they went back to their home. And could you imagine what it might be like in each ward, even if one person was waiting for placement, to go back home to where they belong? And this is Andrea, we're on our way, which is Steve and I are doing 6 trusts in 2 days, and you're the first, and you've already set the bar really high for everybody else. But this is Andrea, she's a ward clerk, and she did this last week, because all of this stuff is not about who you are and how seen you are. What it's really about is what passion you bring and what talents you can offer. And Pete Gordon, a good colleague of ours in Midlands, and he's a nurse as well, and he started producing these badges, and they were so popular, became known as Postman Pete. But the other day, they were going, on the black market, they were selling for about half a kidney. And I saw, we walked through the atrium, you had these, this is Jennifer Helen, who's an OT, I think she's in Salisbury, and she created these pyjamas. And you'll see them out in places, doing pledges and this sort of stuff. And one of the key bits about having the NPJ paralysis, it's about generosity of spirit, it's about sharing and giving, and not stealing and not sort of stealing people saying this is all ours now. So my mind, what's really crucial about NPJ paralysis in the last 1,000 days, particularly NPJ paralysis, is this. It's owned by nobody, which means it's owned by all of us. That's what's really important. And they started doing this in the west coast of New Zealand, in Greymouth, in the west coast, actually there next Monday. And they started, this is Murrumbidgee, in the wonderfully named Wagga Wagga, in New South Wales, and I was teaching them, and that's all the director of nurses who signed up to it. And if you're going to start something, I didn't wake up one morning last November and think, I think I'll go and start a social movement, I've been bored for a while. It doesn't work like that. But if you're going to start something, you might as well go in boots and all. So this is me on International Nursing Day. I'm in trouble that this has got the biggest laugh. But anyway, what the really hat, and I've got to think about shoes in terms of, those are my red shoes, these are my blue suede shoes, because Elvis is in the building today. And this is not my teddy bear. This is the Regional Director of Nursing, this will be Margaret Kitchener's, and this is the Regional Director of Head of Education. We've just been on the telly being interviewed for International Nursing Day, because they're doing NPJ paralysis now over there. And this is the book, the workbook, which some of you will have seen from to the workshop that Steve set up back in June the 20th in Leeds. And I brought 5 copies that I'll give to you, Moya, to pass on. But I love this. I'm in the Royal Free in London on Friday, and the Dom there, Debbie Sanders, this. And there's a letter from the patients. Dear Sir Madam, this is a request for an immediate discharge from this hospital as soon as possible. The reason being that I feel that the process of discharge is just taking far too long, and I wish to leave the hospital as soon as it is possible. If the request is refused, then I will take it upon myself to walk out of the hospital anyway, or sincerely. The CEO has got this in his office framed, because to their mind, actually what this is doing is that man's time has been stolen, we're backing about, he's ready to go, and actually he'll write a polite letter, but he's leaving anyway. And that's fantastic when we do this. But what's important to understand about NPJ paralysis is this. There's no KPIs, there's no Gantt chart, there's no project plans, there's none of those things. But what there is a lot of trust. The success of this, particularly as a ward manager, is what works in cardiology, may not work in ortho, you give medical units, trusting the ward manager to do what is best and what works. This image is you've got Anne-Marie Riley, Deputy Director of Nursing in Nottingham, and Tim Gillax is up here in the north, and Pete Gordon in the Midlands and East. So this, not surprisingly, is Princess Leia. I'm Yoda, about the right height as well. And the boys are C-3PO and R2D, so we've got a vacancy for hands, if you like. But we'll look open hands. But what's really important is it's about having fun ourselves as well and supporting each other. So Steve and I are doing Thelma and Louise tour. He's telling me he's a driver. I've already checked. We finish up with Bolton. There's no cliffs around Bolton. But a lot of it is in, and when we were driving up this morning from Southport, we were talking about this, a lot of it is in the framing and how you frame the world. Three men, they're all doing the same job. First man's asked, what do you do? He says, oh, all I'm doing is laying these downwards. The second man's asked, what do you do? He says, what I'm doing is I'm feeding my family. The third man's asked, what do you do? He says, what I'm doing is I'm part of the team building a school, so that people, also building a cathedral, so that people can come and worship their God and feel at peace. Same job, different ways of seeing the world. And it's discretionary effort that makes the difference in an organisation. And what it's to do with is what I see as the NHS social millionaires. And you look at NPJ paralysis, you look at red to green, because red to green isn't a transactional thing, it's the way of seeing the world about let's not steal patients' time needlessly. Let's make every day, instead of being a red day, make it a green day for them. And all of these things are about valuing time. The social millionaires is that in every day in the NHS, we collectively undertake 1 million acts of kindness. That we value patient time, we have no red days, we offer dignity, autonomy, humanity. And also it reminds us, why did we come in the first place into healthcare? Why did we do this? Because we are part of something bigger than all of ourselves. And it's around recognising that the patient time is the most important currency of all. And if you want 4 compelling reasons, here's 4. Patient time is the most important currency. 10 days in hospital is the loss of 10 years of muscle mass in a person over 80. If you are over the age of 85, 48% of people over the age of 85 will die within 1 year of admission. These are people who really end their last 1,000 days. And of course, if you had 1,000 days left to live, how many would you choose to spend in hospital? And these two slides are from a colleague, Derek Labour, a senior therapist, physio in the NHS Highlands. There's a special offer we can offer to patients. 20% of your cost per hour, 1.5 kilos of muscle mass loss, 10% loss of aerobic activity, 30 years lost to Dallas 1966 study. At cellular level, 30 years loss of added aging. All of these impacts in terms of disability, activities of daily living, muscle weakness, 6-minute walkers, a 5-fold increase in the risk of needing institutional care from a week in hospital if you're over 80. All of those bits. It's just extraordinary. And what does it lead to? Well, it leads to all of these features, and also include deaths. 50% of people over 65 are incontinent within 24 hours of arriving in hospital. And that, to my mind, that ends up leading to a smaller life. And I saw something yesterday afternoon in 3 weeks in the bed. Mine was in the mid-60s, early 60s. And he'd lost his confidence. He'd been 3 weeks, he was using a frame, relatively solid bloke. And he said, I nearly didn't make it to the toilet twice. And I might stop these water tablets, diuretics. And you can just see the narrative rolling out, can't you? He's going to go home and he's going to say, well, I'm not going to take those water tablets because, I nearly didn't make it to the toilet in time. So I won't take them. But there could be a real consequence of not doing so. You can see how they bounce back. But what is the root cause? Most certainly, it's deconditioning. And we will know in healthcare when we're getting it really right when we start shutting rehab beds. Because too often patients are sent to rehabilitation for reconditioning of the deconditioning that occurs while they're in hospital. And if we only send patients for ortho or neuro or other types of rehab, not nosocomial, but is down to a need that is not reflective of fixing the reconditioning that's needed, then we'll know we're in the right track. Because this, again, some of Peter Pennell's work, 10 days in hospital leads to this sort of stuff. So creating energy for ownership is around giving followers the credit. Giving the followers, Barbara does incredibly generous, and where are you, how manager, just incredibly generous and supportive. And the thing is this, if you're a leader without followers, all you are is just some random out for a walk. It's about creating and making a big inclusive tent, but also forgetting perfection, because perfect is the enemy of better. Go and change something today or tomorrow, because I promise you it'll be better than yesterday. Don't wait to create. You know, you see this happen all the time. 6 months project, you've got a team working on it, they've got launched a big fanfare, and suddenly, by the end of the morning, the dog on the street can tell you that's not working. But egos and all sorts of things have gotten in the way, and we're fixed on this. PDSA is constant changing, making it better. That's how we make it better. And never ever underestimate the power of giving people permission to act. Because everybody here, your role in many respects is you're the director of permission giving. And if you're a manager, if you start with something I do all the time, is that the answer is yes, what's the question? Could you imagine if you're a manager and your staff know you already are going to say yes? What would that be like if you're liberating the talents that are here? That they know you're going to say yes, what you're going to do is support them to do so. Because people come into work to do a good job, they want to make it better. Often they don't feel they've got permission to act, so never underestimate the power of giving that permission. And most leaders under-communicate by a factor of 10. You might be thinking of talking about it, but the more you talk about it, the better. You can't over-communicate. And communication is not engagement. Engagement is one-to-one, it's hearts and mind in that order. It's engaging the heart before the head. And just because people ask a lot of questions doesn't mean they're against it. It's different groups process at different speeds and individuals. And because they're asking questions, it may be based on, I'm a bit nervous, I need to understand this so I feel safe. Questions are all to do with safety, not being difficult. And it takes time to change. It's a journey. And the thing about a really great point, Andrea, every successful organisation will tell you what they're on is a journey. And journeys take time. What's brilliant about the work that Steve's doing was a regulator, it's not about, here's a big stick, let's come and beat you. It's going to take a while. You're on the right track. Keep the faith. And part of what Steve's job, in many ways, you stand in front of others to support organisations to succeed. And that takes courage, which you've got lots of, but it's also about courageous execs saying, we will hold the line while you've lost them. I work in one of the top 5 health systems in the world in Canterbury. We've been on this journey for 12 years and we kind of only feel we've just managed to learn to tie our shoelaces. Have faith, keep at it, it's worth it, I promise you. And look at that, the bricklayers are back. Randomly, thanks for that. Another wall. That's called down today with the PFI builders, who's, don't really. It's about understanding what good looks like as I go back. And looking at all these sort of impacts around VO2 max and skin tone, all of that sort of stuff. But it's back to the heart and mind, and red to green really is a heart and mind journey. I love the fact so many years something like Ria, glorious green, and the senior nursing team, you did this you got that perfect. Look at this. But let's not underestimate the impact of being on your own in hospital. We own the curtains by the beds. We pull the curtain an hour later, family are sitting behind, so they don't feel they've got permission. And sometimes when you've been in a single room, actually, people ruminate, they become quite lonely, and people start thinking, well, maybe this is it. And that's not great. It's more as much about emotional well-being as it is about physical. I mean, you look at the patient's journey, they get into hospital, you get a big blood care, and they wait. And they get to split asleep, and then less care, and then wait. And of course, it's all refilled. And deconditioning is a combination of waiting and sleep deprivation, but while we reduce the waiting time, we still give great care. It's about getting rid of all the red out of that mix. Then there's the actions, about getting on, doing, prioritising things. And there's all the work that's been done in all kinds of places. Sonia Noshin is a transformation manager who's now moved to Bradford. And if you go on Twitter, and honestly, if you're not on Twitter, I promise you should be. It's not just about the Kardashians. It is the best source of continuing professional development I've known in my whole career. It's sensational, and Sonia Sparkles is her name for this. She does these brilliant stuff, and we're going to launch a new logo shortly, which I'll tell you about a new project we're working on, PDA paralysis. You can also look at these kind of actions, where you have a pathway, the patient knows what they're having. On day 1, the physios will get you out of bed and give you exercise to do. You'll sick, let the nurse know. You'll have an x-ray or a hip tear or a blood test. I love the fact about skeleton of vampire ash. But each of these images, for people with literacy issues, it's a really good way of doing it. But the other bit that's not happening is Bentigo in Brisbane. And what they started to find is the patient would say, nurse, today's day 3 and I'm supposed to have my catheter out yesterday. So the length of stay was shortened because the patient owned their journey, they owned what was going on. And Jack Hayward from 1980 showed, Professor of Nursing, that evidence and information, that's what I was looking for. Information is a prescription against pain. People who know what's going to happen will need less pain relief, and that has to be better. So you can shorten your length of stay when the patients, their relatives own it, and then there's no surprises. It's about understanding the role and the impact that you have. Because if you want to make things happen, don't start with the action, start with the values. And it seems to me, if you look at Simon Sinek's works about the what, how, and why, what we've had for the last 17 years since the NHS plan and through the current administration as well, we've had all these targets. Those are our whats. The NHS has to deliver 18 weeks, 4 hours, cancer, all this. This is the what we have to do. In many places, there's an understanding of how, and this is important work with ESIP and NHSI and others. It's important to understand. But very rarely do we talk about why. Rick, can I just quickly check what time I may have got?
Yeah, you're at 13 and a half.
I'll just have a couple of minutes. So connecting with people's values is what's important. But what's the personality of people in healthcare? Actually, the personality is introversion. Majority of people in healthcare are actually introverts. I'm not trying to give the detail of why. Trust me, I'm a nurse. There's lots of work around it, but that is the personality. Now, not everyone's, wants to be not everyone is the same in healthcare. Personally, I reckon that Tom's a surgeon himself. But what does matter most is how you see yourself. That's what matters most. It's not there. It's actually our choices in our lives. And it's how we reframe our thinking. I'll write about this last slide. And it's about this notion of care versus cure. Because we're doing the heroic curing, and that's what gets the impact. In many ways, the need for cure actually is limiting and limiting. There is an end point to the amount of cure, but actually the need for care is endless and limitless. And care, it comes from an old High German word, kor, meaning sick bed. But it also comes, I can't remember which language it is. It's kara, I think it's a Scandinavian word, this one. And it's a Scandinavian word, kara, meaning support. Kara, as Mark will tell you, a good man of Donegal, kara is the Irish word for friend. And I think when you care, you befriend somebody. And just like the word is, it's a more Cumbria word, the word bereaved comes from this part of the world. Because the Reeves, and I know the chaplain is nodding, so you'll know this so much better than I do. But the understand story is, what they did is they would pillage and plunder and kill. And, in the village, this is in the olden times, which would be, 1973. many centuries ago, they would come in when this would all go on. And the bereaved would come in, and what would happen is you would be bereaved. Because bereavement is ultimate loss, to be bereaved. But to be cared for and cared about, and not what matters to you. What matters to you, that's what matters. And you look at the word compassion. Hidden in plain sight, we have both compass and passion. It guides us to doing the right thing for the betterment. Well, even the word competence, hidden in there is the word compete for even better. And heart and conscious, what has that got inside it? What's inside it is art and science. Because when you get a group of people to write down all the words that they think of when they see the word art, and other groups to write all the things they think about when they see the word science, actually what you'll be surprised to learn is that everyone will use the same words. About creativity, about original thinking, about insight. And what it's also about is storytelling. Because, the universe is not really made of stars. What it's made of is stories. That's how we connect with people. When we want to understand, we want to find out. Something I always say to my patients in triage is, what's the story? Because everyone has a story. We all have a backstory. And And no matter how tough it is, you know, when somebody gets a bit stroppy, my question always is, what happened? What is their story that has led them to respond in the way they have? And the last 1,000 days, why does the last 1,000 days matter? And why it matters is this. I was working with a group of geriatricians and nurses and allied health some years ago now, 7 or 8 years ago. And we talked about weights and lean and time, and I had this thought pop into my head, and what it was is this. So if you are a woman, you can expect to live to the age of 83. If you're a man, you can expect to live to about the age of 79. But if you are a 76-year-old man or an 80-year-old woman, what have you got left? But what you have is 1,000 days. And I know the longer we live, the longer we expect to live. If you survive childhood, you know, life expectancy goes up. Great evidence now that shows people have the most birthdays live longest. You know, that never is. I got me a professorship. I'm quite sure. But actually, what is this hospital next Cumbria? What is it full of? What it's full of is people in the last 1,000 days. And every day, somebody waits longer here than they must is stealing their time. Every hour they wait to go home is stealing their time. Every minute they wait in an outpatient uncertain is stealing their time, which is why, to my mind, the last 1,000 days, as much as anything, is a moral issue to do the right thing so we don't have red days of stealing time with green days. But the other side of it, the corollary of it, is this, is that, please God, every one of us in this room will live to be that 76-year-old man or that 80-year-old woman, and we'll end up looking back on our last 1,000 days. And we think, you know, I didn't get rich, and we didn't get famous, but I mattered. I mattered to my community. I mattered to my profession. I mattered to my family. I mattered. This place is better because of what I did. And when John Steinbeck wrote Great Rat, his great character Mao said, far away in the future, 1,000 lives we could have led are waiting for us to show up, and when we get there, it will only have been one of them. So each of us here could have chosen a different life. Each of us could have chosen lives that we wouldn't be taken from our families at weekends and missed family events and had to study days, months, year after year, and still do. We could only have done jobs we could probably have paid better, but instead what we did, we chose a life with purpose. To be part of something bigger than ourselves. And that, I think, to my mind, is a life that will be well led and one we can all be proud of. But it's not they who start doing stuff. Actually, leadership starts first of all from within. It's about believing we can make a difference. Because if we believe we can, we can. But also, it's not the boulders, we walk around those, it's the stones in our shoes that wear us out. So tackling the little stuff means we get to deal with the big stuff. And you know, the James Black's theory of chaos, and he talked about, and I love this metaphor, but I then expanded it because I saw it with this butterfly in the Brazilian rainforest. And with the beating of their wings, just lets the tiniest ripples, tiniest of wind, which can aggregate into small breeze, which can be a wind, which could be a gale, which could become a hurricane. And here's the thing, not all of us can be a hurricane, every one of us can be a butterfly that makes a difference. Thank you so much. Worried about your deconditioning. Would you like to go for tea? Thank you.
You might get some thickener in.
Sadly, I don't. Thank you, West Cumbria. I love you.
Now, I'm glad there was a bit of a discussion there about not being entirely perfect, because I'm not somebody quite as good at public speaker as Brian. I would like to thank Brian for that great presentation. I'm sure everybody's inspired by the words that he said. Now, I've kind of already done a brief introduction. I'm Barbara. I'm one of the physios working at the Cumbrian Infirmary. And I would like to introduce our story. Maybe. I've just got technical issues. Well, anyways, while they're sorted out a bit, I'll explain. Basically, I started this journey through my ILM in Leadership and Management qualification. So I started the course and I needed to get a project to get my teeth into. I had been doing a bit of CPD, like Brian said, on social media, having a look at my CPD development on Twitter, and I've seen Brian's work and the work that he was doing in other trusts. I said to my manager, I think maybe we could get the radio to launch it here. And she said, yeah, that's a great idea. I was like, no, I'm totally joking. No, don't actually mean that I'm going to do that. However, a few glasses of wine later, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that would be great here. 3 weeks later, we launched our campaign. So it was as quick as that. And the moral of the story is really, I'm just a physio working here. I've seen this moral purpose of the things, the benefits that we can do, and the changes that we can make. And it's about how all of you now go and help me improve it. We've given everybody an A3 planning sheet. With your packs, you should have an A3 planning sheet. It's about now how you go away and make those changes and do developments in your own area of work. Fingers crossed. So my vision was to reduce hospital-associated patient deconditioning. I have to have these to read, because I'm not quite as good as that, right? To reduce hospital-associated patient deconditioning by bringing the NTPJ Parliament campaign into Cumbria. So that was my initial vision. Our first steps, as Brian said, there's no KPIs, there's no planning with this. It's literally let's have a look. But I wanted to get some baseline data to see where we were up to. Okay, so these are our little graphs to see about Cumbrian Infirmary and West Cumbrian Hospital. And our kind of data collection found that between 22 and 25% of patients were in their own clothes and out of bed. So that means kind of 75 to 80% of patients were in the PJs, were in bed. You know, that's reflective of other trusts that says that really we need to make this a key priority. So, you know, the evidence that Brian talked about, the kind of vast evidence that shows us that deconditioning causes patients to reduce muscle mass and reduce independence, increases our kind of work at social services and patients will need on discharge. It's really, really important for us to look at this in the future. Now, the next stage of my kind of idea was to get a few champions involved. So some of you will notice some of the faces on here, and I would like to thank these people on these images for making sure that they actually supported me right from the very start and didn't say this is stupid and didn't laugh at me too much. Okay, so thank you to these doctors for being right there right from the very beginning. As Brian said, we've got some fabulous display posters which you can see around the building on the NTPJ paralysis, and the communications team here has been great in making some lovely red to green posters to go out and start kind of being distributed now. And this has caught the way and given us permission to use these posters, so it's great that we can see them around the trust. Our launch day was on the 4th of May. And it was a fun way of spreading this kind of really serious message around Cumbria. It was important to understand that the aim of our PJ parade was not only to raise awareness of the PJ paralysis, but it was also on a personal level to allow us to empathise with our patients. This is why Megan is here. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get Megan get out of bed. Okay, because I think she's probably absolutely heartbroken being in there. And I just want to read you just a couple of words from Megan to say how she's felt being in the PJs in bed. Come on, Megan. Do you need a hand now, you've been for a little while? You don't need to shoot, that's all right. out. Thank you very much for being our... Our launch day also created the Trust's highest number of social media impressions. So we really want to kind of make sure that that's driven on and that you keep forwarding those things today. We've all got a little kind of a little bit of information about Red to Green and some kind of hashtags and things that you can be using throughout the day. So feel free to tweet your pictures and your thoughts on the day. Oh, there we go. That's just bouncing around. We'll go the right way. This next one here, these ladies look like they're having a great time in the PJs. Our campaign was fun, people enjoyed it, they got on board. However, patients unfortunately tell us that they often feel that they're not able to do this. They're told that they feel the need permission to mobilise or tell them to sit down in case they fall over. In fact, we need to encourage physical activity to maintain patients' mobility and independence. Those who need more help should be assisted to walk rather than ride in wheelchairs or jump on a commode next to patients' beds. We need to promote people to get up and get moving. Okay. Bed rest should be prescribed only absolutely necessary. Get them up and get them out of bed. So hopefully in turn, this will improve patient safety and experience. It will reduce the risk of patients falling over. It will reduce the risk of pressure sores, reduce the risk of chest infections and complications from being in bed. Our next stage was to get staff on board. So this is why you're all here today, to get you all on board. So as our next stage in it. Obviously to make a change happen, we need to get staff, public, perception kind of changing, we need to get patients involved, and we've done this through staff engagement, social media, getting TV campaigns and local newspaper involved in it. We've made us all do some PJ pledges, so we've actually got a gallery of pledges in the main atrium, which we would really encourage people to go and have a little look after this and have a look at pledges that other people have made, and then make your own Red to Green pledge. So I think a lot of you have got kind of the pledges out, so we'd encourage you to make your own pledge. That would be great. And one of the most important things, we need people to spread key messages, getting up, getting dressed, getting moving, valuing patients' time, making sure that patients have a quality experience, bringing day and night clothes, and sometimes we even need to get up and shout about these things. We need to tell people. We need to be the ones that shout at people and tell them to get up. Sorry, mate. Sorry.
I don't think I have a disclaimer more.
Jake's gone all the way to Canada and so I'm just going to do a brief bit about a post-launch. So it's important that this is a continued improvement. It's not something that we can stop. We have to keep going. We do a audit 4 weeks after our launch day, and the results show that at Carlisle that we had a 3% overall, 3% improvement in our patients that were up, out of bed and dressed. So that's good. In terms of getting people dressed, we were really good. At Cumbria Infirmary, we had a 6% increase in patients that were actually in their own day clothes, and at West Cumberland Hospital, a fabulous 14% increase in the amount of patients in the day clothes. However, the results did show a slight dip in the number of people that were up out of bed, which shows that we've got work to do. There's still work to do by everybody. But obviously, it's also reflective of the fact that we work in an acute hospital. And as much as we can push to make sure people have their own clothes with them, if they're not medically well, then they may well be back in bed. So it is a little bit reflective of the fact that on a day-to-day basis things can change. So hopefully we will continue to work on that. And then I'm going to I'll do a we're speeding through this to make sure that we get everything done in the day. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a quick introduction. So Liz has done a little bit of work from the work that we've seen as part of Ryan's presentation in June, and she's done a little bit of work on an orthopaedic ward she's going to talk about. So I'm going to introduce this to Liz. specifically on orthopaedics. So I'm just going to talk very quickly about the kind of patient goal tick sheet that we've devised on orthopaedics, which was an idea that Barbara brought from when she went to Brian's workshop in Leeds. She brought a picture of it and said, hey, you're an orthopaedic, this looks like a good idea. Took it on board and devised our own, basically. So they were designed to help patients have a clear understanding of what they needed to do to be able to get home. And since launching this roughly about 2 weeks ago, we've had every patient who has used it do just a little bit of a patient satisfaction survey, and it did show that all of the patients found it useful in facilitating their journey, managing their expectations, and encouraged them to get dressed and get moving. We've also added the 4 questions that we feel every patient should know the answer to on the back to help improve patient experience by ensuring they're well informed and playing an active part in their journey. And also, also on orthopaedics, we've begun a PDSA cycle to create a closed bank in support of the End PJ Paralysis campaign.
My name is Jen, I'm one of the occupational therapists here. And as a team, what we wanted to do was come up with a leaflet to help improve health and well-being of our people in hospital, and also look at empowering patients and families more. So we came up with the leaflet, Get Up, Get Up and Keep Moving. The main aims of the leaflet was to provide information to patients and families so that they understand what to expect and how they can really help in terms of recovery within hospital, and that kind of leads on to the next one, to promote an active participation actually within recovery and rehab, and also looking at prevention as well as improvement in health as well in hospital. And we also wanted to ensure that we were enabling a meaningful rehabilitation of people here, looking at their routines before they came into hospital, getting up, getting dressed, and then transitioning back home to then be able to continue those activities once they're home. I haven't got time to go through the leaflet, but there is a copy.
The next stage of our campaign is to try and work on the fab work with Brian and to actually launch the last 1,000 days of the Red Green within Cumbria. And we've made some lovely logos with the help of our communications team, which is absolutely great. And we've heard from Brian why this is so important. I'm not going to go into lots and lots of detail about Red Green. You've all got a little bit of information on your on the handout about exactly what what the days would mean. And there's lots of posters that are around to help with that. You'll see you've all got a copy of this. What I want to do is we're just going to have just a few minutes from the Eden unit of Penrith. They're just going to do some feedback of how they launched the Red to Green campaign in their area. Hello everyone, I'm Jackie. I'm physio at Penrith Hospital on the Eden unit. Hi Wes. Last one. So this is just a picture of our team. I'm here today to talk about what we've kind of launched in terms of Safer with a bit of help from Christine Stewart. So we started Safer Bundle, and what that is, it's a patient flow improvement, part of the patient flow improvement programme. And what it does is it aims as a practical tool to improve patient flow to the hospital and to reduce bed stay. So what SAFER stands for, as Brian kind of touched on before, it's getting a senior clinician review, and what we aim to do is get that before midday every day. All patients, we want to aim to get every patient that we can, possibly can, an estimated date of discharge, and that's whether they're medically well, sometimes difficult when they're not medically fit, but as accurate as we can in terms of the quickest possible point in your stay. We're looking at patient flow, so we're looking at as soon as the patient comes into hospital, looking at the quickest kind of flow through the hospital and what we need to do to establish that. When patients are ready for discharge from hospital, we try to get at least a third of the patients discharged before midday. We find that improves the flow through the hospital as well. And also the review stands for a multidisciplinary review for the patients that may have a longer stay and kind of have a whole first approach to kind of discussing that patient and what's going to support them in discharge. So this is kind of what we started off doing. Every morning we found our handovers were either very nursing based, we didn't really focus on what's valuable for that patient each day, so we started to make a bit more structure to our board rounds. And what we found is we started to get more people coming to our board rounds. Now we've got kind of Ravelman, RO officers coming to our board rounds, social workers and actually members of the mental health team, so it means we really get a good holistic approach to our board rounds in the morning. So what we do every day is establish what the actions that need to be taken that day to improve that patient, or whether it's just a medical review if that patient's unwell, or what we need to do in terms of steps for that patient towards discharge. We allocate a responsible contact and actually initial name, so each person has that responsibility each day to take ownership for their jobs, and it just gives us a clearer vision of what we're actually doing. And what we do is we meet kind of in the afternoon, usually when the nurses are kind of handed over in the day, and we look at taking up our jobs, and then that's when the green day comes in and we have a bit of a laugh about, you done your job? No, ooh, red, why have you not done it? Is there anything we can do? We take a bit more seriously. But yeah, so that's kind of what we've kind of found that's really been beneficial. That's just what we've been talking about, about red and green, so establishing whether it's been a value, and as I say, if we decide that it has been a red day, we look at kind of what can we do before then today to make it into a green day. This is what we found has kind of happened as a result. So we have had more structure, more concise handovers, they're written up on a daily basis and we're saving them so we know exactly where we're at, why things are and haven't been getting done, and makes just it clearer for everyone what their responsibilities are. I'll let you read through them just so we're getting through, but ultimately we are aiming to reduce the length of stay on the ward. And what I did is said, that's all well and good, I can tell it's working, and the team were like, yep, this is great. Like, to begin with, everyone was saying, this is a bit more work, more paperwork, but actually this is working, this is great. And I said to my manager, what's the proof then? You've actually come in here, is there anything to prove? So I did a nice little graph. So actually we started around the end, it was around kind of end of last year, but when we started most of the change, we started to really record what we were doing in terms of recording our stay for board rounds. The red line kind of shows when we started to do our stay for board rounds, and it does show that the length of bed stay is reducing. I mean, it doesn't maybe look as exciting to you, but for us, even if it was one day, it's like, it's a big deal in a 28-bedded ward, so I was quite pleased with that. And that's, taking into account staffing, sickness, and that type of thing as well. And then we'll look at patient flow, so just getting them patients in and out, you can see that that's improved as well. So, yeah, can't say better than that. So actually the numbers add up, I'm not just talking about it. So just to kind of finish up, because I think what Steve was talking about is about staff morale, so it's about kind of, us as a team, I feel we've improved as a team, and we feel that we've got better understanding, we're working just in a better flow together, and we're actually all, we get on. So I thought I'll get a few quotes of what they think about how things are going, and there's just some nice kind of buzzwords like more efficient patient journey and improved working relationships, understanding the processes involved with discharge planning, and just having clearer actions for the day, people taking ownership for the jobs. And so that's kind of why I wanted to come and talk to you today. So I'm quite passionate about it. So, and it's just about making the difference we can. So if anything to take away from today is if you're not already doing something similar, just have a go. We were at the HP strategy launch and they said, don't wait for permission, just go for it and just do it. So that's it. Just going to do very very, very briefly, we're just going to go over a couple of success stories, and then we're going to make our way to the 80th, so it won't be too long. This is just a couple of success stories on social media, one from Julie Mattinson about the orthopaedic kind of side of things, making sure that people are getting rest. And then Gemma Munson looking at length of stay down from 40 to 5.6. You know, after spending a few weeks kind of looking at these red to green kind of bundles after she came through at least. So it's really kind of positive. Wrong way. So basically, this is kind of where we're tallying things up. We're looking at making sure that you make your own red to green pledge. When you finish here, please go to the main atrium and make your own pledge, take photos, share it on social media. We're actually going to make our way to the wards and just do a very, very quick session on the wards before we join you, where we're looking at how dance is improving the experience and the quality of care within elderly care patients in the hospital environment. It's really, really important. Make sure you tag us in your tweets and tag everything in. And I would just like to personally thank Cumbria University Hospital and Cumbria Partnership Foundation Trust for helping me and not saying don't do that and thinking that would have been stupid. You know, they've let me kind of do this, and they've let me help you to improve the patient care and experience that we give. And it's a moral purpose, isn't it? You know, we don't come to this job for the money. We come to make sure we make a difference to people's lives, and I think that's why this is really important. Right.
Everybody, hi West. I just wanted to say a few words. I'm the Director of Nursing at this trust, and I've been here just since last April. And I have to say I'm absolutely humbled by the work that has gone on through Barbara, but with everybody in this room and at West across the trust who have taken hold of this. And I really believe in the power of social media, as those of you know when they see me out and about in Cumbria. And one Friday night, like Barbara, I had a couple of glasses of wine, tweets came up about, oh, I wonder if I could do something about this, and my response was, go for it. That's probably about the sum total of effort that I have put into this, other than encouragement. Yes, you can, go away and do it, because leadership isn't with me, it's with Barbara, and it's with everybody in this room. And I think what she's proven today is just what you can do with a little bit of energy and a little bit of enthusiasm and the right level of support. Most importantly, I absolutely believe in patients being custodians of their own care. And people who work with me and know me have heard me saying this more than once. Patients don't belong to us. They belong to their families, they belong to their communities. And we are privileged to look after them for short periods of time. Let's make that as short as it possibly can be on their behalf. I want to say a big thank you to Brian. He's a powerful raconteur, and I'm sure everybody's heard today, and I'm sure we could all love to hear him speak even longer. But it's a really important message. We start with time and we finish with time. How do we want to make our next 1,000 days, whether the next 1,000 days are our first or our last, really important. So I encourage you to go away and make your pledges. Look at the work that's being done. This is so important. We're making some fantastic changes here in North Cumbria, and I feel really proud and privileged to work here. And I know our future